Welcome to a new aviation wellness episode by Pilot Technica. Today we're about to take a deep dive into something really profoundly powerful, something that shapes our success, our well-being, our relationships, even our careers, especially in demanding fields like aviation. It's all about how our thoughts, that constant internal world we live in, fundamentally determine who we are and what we actually achieve. We've been digging into some fascinating source material for this, looking at it specifically through the lens of aviation wellness.
And this source material, it really zeroes in on a critical point. We ought to focus, don't we, on fixing external behaviors. I need to stop doing X or I need to start doing Y. But it makes this really compelling case that the real levers for change, the deep transformation, it isn't primarily about changing your actions. It's really about changing your internal narrative.
Right. It's not just what you do, but that quiet, constant story you're telling yourself about who you are while you're doing it. That's the key. So our mission today is to really unpack the source material. We're going to explore these core ideas. It presents concepts like internal blueprints, how our brain gets wired to follow these plans, and why belief isn't just, a nice to have, but the active driving force behind our reality.
Exactly. It's about moving beyond just the symptoms, the actions, and getting right down to the root cause within our own minds.
Okay, so let's unpack this then. The source kicks off with this powerful challenge to that whole action-first mindset. It states very clearly, we become what we think about consistently, not just what we do once in a while. Can you break that down a bit?
Well, think about it this way. You might force yourself to do something new, maybe, I don't know, related to wellness or professional development. You do it once, maybe twice. But your underlying thinking, your internal narrative, isn't supporting that behavior. If it's actually fighting against it, that action probably isn't going to stick, is it? It doesn't really integrate into who you are. That it's the consistent internal dialogue that has the real shaping power.
And that constant internal dialogue calls these your blueprints. What exactly does it mean by that term?
Yeah, blueprints. These are those quiet, often unnoticed conversations that are just always running in your head. They can be filled with doubt, like, oh, I'm not really cut out for this role, or maybe hope, I reckon I can figure this out, or regret, or even a deep sense of purpose. These are just random, fleeting thoughts. They're the actual foundational plans being drawn up for the person you're becoming, moment by moment.
Okay, so like the architect's plan for a building, the final structure has to follow that initial drawing.
And then the source introduces this really compelling concept, wiring. It's just our brains become receptive, almost tuned in to this constant narrative we feed them. They literally get wired to comply with the story we keep telling ourselves. So if you constantly reinforce the thought, I'm not capable of handling difficult passengers, your brain becomes wired to interpret situations through that specific lens. It makes you feel less capable when you actually face one, and then your behavior just follows suit.
Wiring for compliance. That's a little unsettling, but it makes a lot of sense. My brain starts actively looking for evidence to back up my own internal script.
Precisely. If the script running is I'm not good enough, your brain filters your experiences to find proof of exactly that. It becomes your oppositional truth. And this is crucial. The source quickly flips this to show the immense power on the positive side too. If you consistently think about your potential, about learning and growth, your brain starts building pathways to support that narrative instead. It wires itself to look for opportunities, to learn new things, to actually build a path forward.
It really does seem to boil down to that stark truth the source lays out. Think like you're going to fail, and you sort of become someone who often does. Think like you're capable of succeeding, and you actively build towards that success. Your thinking isn't just reflecting reality, it's actively constructing your future reality and yourself within it. It can absolutely make you your own worst enemy if those blueprints are negative.
Yeah, and it's not about superficial positive thinking. It's deeper. It's understanding this fundamental cognitive process the brain adapts. It physically changes based on the patterns of thought you consistently reinforce.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. The source grounds this whole concept with specific examples from the aviation world. I think this is incredibly insightful for our listeners.
Yes, it paints a very vivid picture. Think about, say, a pilot or a cabin crew member who's constantly thinking internally, I just lack leadership qualities.
Okay, so they might have excellent technical skills, right? Maybe even great ideas for improving crew coordination or safety procedures, but what happens then?
Well, despite having all the raw material, their internal blueprint that I'm not a leader, thought, dominates everything. They'll second-guess themselves constantly. They hesitate to speak up in those crucial moments. They defer to others, even when their own intuition is screaming at them.
Why does that happen? It's not necessarily a lack of knowledge or skill in that specific moment. It's because their thoughts are effectively imprisoning them. They're stuck in an old story, a blueprint they've accepted, maybe for years, without ever really questioning it.
Right. Their behavior then, on the flight deck or in the cabin, it just naturally flows from that internal narrative. They act hesitant, they act small, because their dominant thinking is small. Their external performance becomes a direct reflection of that internal blueprint they've been running on loop.
Okay, now contrast a pilot or cabin crew member who thinks something like, okay, I'm still learning, obviously, but I absolutely have what it takes to lead in this situation.
That shift is profound, isn't it? It acknowledges reality. Look, everyone is always learning, but crucially, it plants that seed of possibility and capability. I have what it takes.
And this person behaves completely differently, even in the exact same scenario. What does that look like?
Well, they have more probing questions. They're more likely to step forward and take initiative, propose ideas, perhaps take small, calculated risks in their communication or decision making.
This isn't about them just faking some external confidence they don't actually feel deep down.
No, not at all. It's because they genuinely believe in their capacity for growth and leadership. They are actively practicing that belief through their internal thought process.
So that practice, that consistent internal narrative of potential and capability, that's what gradually reshapes their identity over time. The actions they take aren't forced anymore. They become the natural expression of the person they are becoming internally.
The source also shares that relatable anecdote, remember, about the cabin crew member who wanted to improve her passenger address announcements. Her biggest barrier wasn't really lack of practice or even, debilitating stage fright.
It was that deeply ingrained, just accepted idea. I'm just not naturally confident at public speaking. That was her story.
She had unconsciously built an identity around that single thought. And the source's point here is really sharp. You simply cannot build a new skill, a new life, a new version of yourself on top of an old, limiting mindset. That internal script, that blueprint, it has to change first.
This really brings us nice perspective on identity itself. It really pushes back against that common idea that identity is something passive, something you just go searching for.
Yeah, like it's some kind of hidden treasure chest just waiting to be discovered deep inside you somewhere. Identity is fundamentally something you build.
Yeah, it says moment by moment, thought by thought. You don't just wake up one day and find your identity as a confident leader or a skilled communicator or a resilient crew member. You actively become one.
And the starting point for that becoming, the very first step, is thinking like that person you want to be. Long, long before you have any external validation or proof that you are that thing yet. The thought actually precedes the reality, laying the groundwork.
But here's the trap. We often spend vastly more time dwelling on our fears than we do focusing on our actual goal.
Oh, absolutely. That endless mental rehearsal of everything that could possibly go wrong. What if I mess this up? What are my colleagues going to think? How am I going to fail this time? We all do it.
And the consequence of that constant fear-focused thinking is really significant, isn't it? The more mental energy you pour into those fears, the more your identity gets built around avoidance, hesitation, and just playing it safe.
That eventually, you don't just feel afraid in specific challenging situations. You actually become someone whose identity is defined by avoiding those situations. Someone defined by caution and retreat. And that fundamentally limits the kind of life you can experience, the potential you can reach.
It uses a great analogy here. Our brains are like soil.
Right. And what you choose to plant in that soil, whether it's seeds of fear, doubt, gratitude, courage, or purpose, that's what will grow. But only if you water it. And we water that soil with our attention, with our consistent thoughts.
So the practical advice is actually deceptively simple. You have to consciously choose to let go of the fear of failure. You need to see past errors and mistakes not as proof that you can't do something, but as the essential foundation upon which your future success is actually built.
And, crucially, especially for anyone in a performance-oriented field like aviation, you have to give up worrying so much about what other people might think. Their opinions, really, are just irrelevant noise compared to the internal construction project you're undertaking on yourself. Your focus needs to be squarely on building towards your own goals and the identity required to achieve them.
Okay, so what does this all mean for us right now listening to this? Your thoughts are shaping you every single moment. There's no doubt about that. The real question isn't if they're shaping you, but what kind of person are they shaping you into?
It's quite clearly there are no neutral thoughts. Every single thought, no matter how small or fleeting it seems, is either actively building your identity towards your desired future or it's dismantling it.
Wow, no neutral thoughts. It's like being off by just 1 degree on a compass setting at the start of a really long flight.
1 degree off course feels totally insignificant in the beginning, right? You barely notice it. But if you keep going on that slightly wrong heading over hundreds or thousands of miles, you end up miles and miles away from where you intended to go. Your thoughts are that foundational degree setting for your entire life's trajectory. That powerful.
This isn't about forcing fake smiles or repeating empty positive affirmations that you don't actually believe deep down.
No, they call it truthful thinking. It's about the conscious, intentional choice to direct your thoughts toward what is genuinely possible for you, what is purposeful, and what truly aligns with the person you aspire to become.
And this is critical. You do this even when your current reality hasn't caught up to that vision yet. This is precisely why having a clear vision for yourself is so incredibly powerful.
Your vision isn't just some faraway dream you pin on a board. It's the future version of yourself that you start mentally rehearsing right now. Every time you visualize it, every time you focus your thoughts on that future self, you're literally laying another brick in the foundation of that future identity.
You begin to think like the person who would exist and thrive in that vision. And as we've seen, that kind of focused thinking eventually, almost inevitably, leads you to start acting like them too.
So the source leaves us with this powerful invitation for self-reflection, which feels especially relevant in a high-stakes environment like aviation. If you take an honest look at the person you see yourself becoming, and maybe you don't entirely like the direction things are heading, don't start by just listing 10 new habits to force yourself into doing. Start with your thoughts.
Ask yourself, what's the story I'm playing on repeat in my mind every single day? What unconscious beliefs about myself or my capabilities have I just accepted as truth without ever really questioning them? And maybe the deepest question of all, what kind of person would I genuinely be if I simply thought differently about myself, my challenges, and my potential?
Because when you find the courage to consciously choose to change your thoughts, you fundamentally change your identity. When your identity shifts,
The actions just follow naturally. You don't have to white knuckle it or pretend anymore. Showing up, speaking up, taking action becomes an authentic expression of who you are now because you've started rewiring yourself at the deepest level. You've changed the internal script, and your life begins to align with that new intentional narrative.
it truly, truly does start with what you consistently think about.
Because that is quite literally who you will become. Now, it makes a really important distinction here that kind of underpins this whole idea. The difference between merely wishing for something and truly believing in it.
The difference between just passive hope and active creation. Wishing is like a fleeting daydream. It's a nice idea, sure, something you'd like to happen, but it lacks gravity. It doesn't anchor your attention or pull your energy towards it in any meaningful way. It just doesn't drive change.
Belief, however, that's active, actual gravity. It anchors your attention onto what truly matters to you. It actively pulls your energy and focus in a specific direction, and in doing so, it inevitably begins to reshape your actions to align with what you believe.
And when that belief isn't just some vague hope, but it's focused and intentional, it becomes this potent force capable of turning that internal thought into your external reality.
That most people don't fail to achieve their goals because they lack the inherent ability or talent. They fail because they lack belief commitment.
Belief commitment. They approach challenges or new directions sort of tentatively, don't they? Always keeping one foot firmly planted back in their old identity or their comfort zone. They might even tell themselves it's being pragmatic, that it's safer not to fully commit just yet.
So they might go through the motions, maybe try a new strategy or behavior, but deep down, they don't truly believe it will actually work for them. The source describes this perfectly as weak hope. And weak hope, it says, just retreats at the very first sign of resistance or real difficulty.
Belief is fundamentally different. Belief is that internal voice that says, this matters. Even if no one else on earth sees it yet, even if there's absolutely no external proof, I hold this as true.
And focused belief goes even further, doesn't it? It's like, this is what I believe, and here's exactly why I believe it. And because I believe this, I am willing to align my life, my habits, my decisions completely around it.
And the core reason belief is so crucial is simple. What you believe fundamentally drives how you behave. Always. Even the behaviors you're not consciously thinking about, they're rooted in your core beliefs about yourself, about others, and about how the world works.
It gives some pretty stark examples. If you hold a deep belief that you are somehow unworthy of success, you will unconsciously, almost certainly, find ways to sabotage opportunities that come your way. It's like self-protection. If you believe you're always lagging behind others, you'll get stuck in this reactive mode, constantly chasing things that don't actually move you towards your genuine goals. If you believe the world is inherently against you, well, guess what? You will unconsciously filter your experiences and find ample proof everywhere to reinforce that very belief.
But conversely, empowering beliefs lead directly to empowering actions. It's just as powerful. If you truly believe you are capable of continuous learning, you face challenges not with dread, but with genuine curiosity. What can I learn here? If you believe you bring unique value to the table, you stop waiting around for permission and you start contributing your insights confidently.
And if you hold a deep belief in your vision or your purpose, you find that internal resilience to just keep building piece by piece, even when there's absolutely no applause or external validation coming your way. None at all.
Focused belief doesn't just help you survive the difficult times, it actually helps you discern what challenges, what discomforts, what sacrifices are actually worth enduring for. It becomes that unwavering center of gravity for all your decisions.
And this is such a key takeaway. Belief isn't some magical feeling that just arrives after everything is going perfectly. That's not how it works. Belief is what you cling to before anything has worked out, before the doors have opened, before the results are visible, before anyone else validates you or your idea.
It's that quiet internal conviction that says, even if the entire world doubts this right now, I don't. I see it, and I hold it as real. And this kind of deep belief doesn't feed on external praise. It's fueled purely by internal clarity about what truly matters to you.
There's a real irony the source points out here. Most people assume they'll finally gain belief after they succeed. I'll believe it when I see it. But the fundamental truth seems to be the complete reverse. You succeed because you chose to believe first. Belief enables the success.
Belief creates incredible alignment. It takes all that fragmented energy we often expend on distractions, worries, trying to please other people, and it focuses it, channels it towards what you truly believe in.
When you genuinely commit to a belief in a mission, a vision, or simply the person you're actively becoming, your habits naturally begin to shift. It's almost automatic. You just stop wasting time on things that contradict that core belief. You start saying a clear no to distractions that would pull you off course.
And you begin to measure your days and weeks differently, don't you? Not just by how busy you were, but by how much closer you actually moved towards what truly matters to you, guided by that central driving belief.
So it all circles right back to the beginning of our discussion, doesn't it? It profoundly starts with what you consistently think about.
Because that, more than anything else, that is who you will become.
So who are you becoming?
And perhaps an even more powerful question, one that gets right to the absolute root of everything. What are you thinking about?
We hope to see you again in the next Aviation Wellness episode by Pylotechnica.
If you are keen to know more about this topic, subscribe on our website, www.pylotechnica.com. We are committed to supporting your personal development project aimed at building the identity you need to achieve your goals.